Avengers Endgame is finally here, and it has made $2.1 billion, making it the second highest grossing film of all time. Not only did it make all this money and it's setting all these records, but it's also getting critical acclaim. Everything from the acting, the storytelling, the visual effects, the emotional weight of everything. This movie was phenomenal. It was a complete fan service, and in my eyes has become the best in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And for the longest time, Captain America Civil War was my favorite of the MCU. This kind of took its spot. I still love Civil War, but this will go down as the best Marvel movie ever. And at first I wasn't going to do this video because how can you really talk about the Avengers Endgame without spoiling anything? And I really wanted to do a non-spoiler review, but I guess I just really didn't know how, because there was so much about the movie that I love, but it was all spoilers. Then I read an article that directors Anthony and Joe Russo did where they said that as of today, spoilers are kind of like fair game, and at this point pretty much everyone has seen the movie, so you're not really going to be spoiling anything. And then when I saw everybody's spoiler reviews on it, I kind of was like, I feel the same way about some of these reviews. So that is kind of why I finally decided to do this video. And since this is a spoiler review, I am going to put in there that there are spoilers ahead. So if you did not see Avengers Endgame, go watch it. This movie was an emotional roller coaster. But this movie was a complete fan service. This is everything that the fans wanted in the last Avengers movie. And I don't want to say the last Avengers movie because there's rumors that there will be another one, but it just won't be with those characters. I've not been as impacted from a movie since I saw Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park had a huge impact on me and my life, and I've never experienced a movie that made me feel the way Jurassic Park made me feel. For this review, I want to start with the beginning because I love the whole misdirection that it gives you. You think that the movie is going in one direction and it doesn't. You think that Captain Marvel shows up and teams up with them and they're going to go fight Thanos. And come to find out that Thanos used the Infinity Stones to destroy the Infinity Stones, and now our heroes are kind of stuck in limbo. And for 5 years, they don't know what they're going to do. And I just always love movies that give you so many scenes before the title card shows up. It was already a movie before the title card showed up. And after Thor kills Thanos, I love seeing where all these characters kind of went, their lives after this, after knowing that there is no way they can fix things. Now, I was pretty wary when we found out that this movie was going to involve time travel, because time travel has always been a tricky subject, because no matter what, it's always wrong. All time travel movies get something wrong. Look at Back to the Future. Back to the Future is the best movie about time travel, and even they were wrong about it. You know, every movie about time travel tries to redefine it, and Avengers Endgame is no exception. They try to redefine the rules of time travel. And even though it's wrong, they still do a good job of making those rules plausible. They put their own spin on the time travel rules and the space-time continuum and time paradoxes and whatnot. And even though I'm sure theorists and physicists and all those people will argue Avengers Endgame's theory on time travel, they still made the theories work in the context of the story. But even though time travel is kind of what projects this movie forward, it is not the central theme of this movie. The central theme of this movie is closure and learning from your mistakes and picking up the pieces and moving forward. So do I agree with the rules about time travel? Not really. But again, this isn't a movie about time travel. Time travel is just a small aspect of this movie. Now, in terms of the characters of this movie, there were some great character arcs in this movie that I cared for every single one of those characters. I've always been a huge Ant-Man fan, and I love Scott Lang's journey from the first Ant-Man all the way up until now. I like the con man growing to becoming this superhero who has to save the universe, and he's really the key to saving the universe. I thought Hawkeye's journey it made sense. I thought this was the natural direction this character would go in after losing his family. So Hawkeye made sense to me. I did have a little bit of a problem with Bruce Banner Hulk. I wasn't fully on board with that. I understand having to make characters different in each movie. This is a movie that is essentially 11 years in the making, 22 films in the making. You have to find new ways to keep those characters fresh and keep them interesting. You can't just have the characters do the same thing over and over and over and over. So I understand having to make Hulk different, having to make him relevant, having to make him contemporary for this movie. I just don't know if merging the two, Bruce Banner and Hulk, together was the right decision. I think having Bruce Banner be in control of the Hulk is an interesting concept, but I wouldn't have him be the Hulk throughout the whole movie. I would have liked to have seen Bruce Banner be in control of the Hulk and being able to control when that change comes about instead of just being Hulk all the time. Now, a lot of people say that they ruined Thor in this, but I disagree. I think Thor's journey in this was phenomenal and the logical choice for the character. This whole movie was about making the superheroes more human, making them flawed. And Thor was really the embodiment of that theme. Thor is going down a dark path, just kind of like how Hawkeye is. Thor feels responsible for the Infinity War snap. Thor has gone through a lot of stuff. Thor feels like a failure, so he feels, why keep going? I'm just going to sit back, get drunk, get fat, and not worry about anything else. Thor has not been able to save a lot of people, and that is something that he is really struggling with. Thor realizes just how many people he hasn't been able to save. He hasn't been able to save his mother, his father, his best friend, his brother, half of his people, half of the universe. He hasn't been able to save all those people. So he knows he can't save all those people. Why move forward with being a hero when he knows he isn't? Or at least he thinks he isn't. Thor's whole journey in this is about redemption. And I like Thor having to redeem himself. The king, the leader, having to redeem himself. And one of the whole concept of this movie is closure. A lot of these characters get closure. And I think that's what Captain America is really striving for in this movie, is closure. Everybody else gets closure, so it only makes sense that Captain America would need to get closure. Cap has never been able to move past Peggy Carter. So it makes sense that when Steve Rogers is faced with this technology that can make him go back and be with Peggy, it makes sense that he would make that decision to do it. And again, a lot of people are freaking out about what this would do to the space-time continuum and how it would change future events. Of course they address it, but Cap could still be Captain America. He could still have this great journey leading up to when he becomes an old man and he hands Sam his shield. And I love the idea that Sam Wilson is going to become Captain America. I know a lot of people wanted Bucky to do it, but it makes sense for Sam. And I think Bucky kind of agrees with this decision too. Bucky has always been seen as a villain. Bucky has done terrible, terrible things. Yeah, he was brainwashed, but he essentially was a terrorist. And you don't give the Captain America mantle to a terrorist. He has been able to redeem himself, but the public perception of him is still going to be that he was a terrorist before. The only question I have about Sam Wilson becoming Captain America is Captain America was made Captain America by the Super Soldier Serum. So will Sam Wilson also get the Super Soldier Serum? Will he become as invincible and as strong as Captain America? I mean, who knows what's going to happen? There is a TV show, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, getting ready to come out. So maybe we will get some answers in there. And I just love seeing Captain America finally wield Thor's hammer. I remember seeing that scene in the movie theater and just a wave of excitement and just confusion just kind of come across the whole movie theater. And it was just a big, big moment knowing that Captain America is worthy. Now, I am kind of on board with the Black Widow decision to sacrifice herself and not have Hawkeye sacrifice himself. You know, Hawkeye has a family that he is trying to get back. Black Widow has been able to live an extraordinary life because of the people that she surrounds herself with. She has never had a true family. She always fights for people who have families. So I get that she came to terms with she has done all this stuff for other people. This is the last sacrifice she can make for families to be reunited. So her sacrificing herself, I get that. I was kind of shocked when it happened, but in terms of the story, I get it. Alright, now we got to talk about Iron Man. The character Tony Stark came full circle in this movie, and it was phenomenal. Robert Downey Jr. just did an amazing job with this character in this movie. I'm not gonna lie, I full on cried at the end of this movie. I cried at a couple parts in this movie, actually. But the end with him was just full-fledged tears coming down my face. I was a mess. Tony Stark's journey in this was just purely amazing. Tony Stark was able to get closure from everybody in this movie. And even though, yes, he died, he went out being supportive, and he went out on a high note with everybody. Everybody had come to terms or put an end to the issues they had with Tony Stark by the end of this movie. And it's like Pepper said to Tony when he was sitting there after he snapped the stones. She looked at him and said, "You can rest now." And we all knew that Tony Stark had found peace, and everybody had found peace with Tony Stark. Tony was able to get closure from Steve Rogers. He was able to get closure from Pepper Potts, who had finally come to terms with the Iron Man persona. Pepper Potts had always had a struggle with Iron Man. And at the end of this movie, she finally came to terms with the Iron Man persona and came to terms with Tony Stark's decision through life. Part of Tony's journey in this movie and in Infinity War is he was not able to live with the guilt of what happened to Spider-Man. He always felt that he was a kind of pseudo-father to Spider-Man, so he could not live with his guilt of watching him turn to ash. But he was able to get closure from Spider-Man. I loved when Spider-Man saw Tony Stark, hugged him, and it was just beautiful. I'm getting ready to cry now. I love how Tony's final lines in his Iron Man armor was, "I am Iron Man." It ended the way this whole story, this whole universe started with him saying, "I am Iron Man." That just was full circle. One of the great things that I loved about this movie, and it was something that I always hoped they did when I found out that this movie was going to involve time travel. And I was hoping they would do it. But Tony Stark needed closure from his father, too. Tony Stark has always had something to say about his dad. He has always had a snide comment about his father. And he has always had some issues with the way he was brought up and who his father was. So when I heard that this movie was going to be about time travel, one of the first things I thought of was Tony has to get closure from his dad. There has to be a scene in there where he confronts his father. Not only that, but John Slattery is such a good actor. To not have him and Robert Downey Jr. in one scene going off at each other would just have been a total waste. So I am so glad that they had that moment in there. And Tony Stark was able to forgive his father for how he grew up, why he was so distant. He was just able to close the book on the relationship him and his father had. And that was another scene that I cried at in this movie. Avengers Endgame was phenomenal, and it was just such a gut-wrenching, emotional ride. And I am really, really glad that Marvel and Disney and Kevin Feige are waiting until the dust settles on this before they announce where the MCU is going forward. We know that Spider-Man Far From Home will be coming out soon, and in the coming months we will have Comic-Con in July and the D23 Expo in August. So I'm looking for some news on the Marvel Cinematic Universe at those points. Thanks for watching. Be sure to comment below. Let me know what you think of Avengers Endgame. What was the most emotional part of that movie for you? Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get all my videos when they come out. And as always, I will see you next time.